In the wake of the horrific mass stabbing attack at Bondi Westfield on the 13th of April, the conversation about what's being termed men's violence against women continues to bubble along. It reached boiling point over the weekend when rallies were held in Australia's capital cities and a number of towns to protest what was primarily framed as intimate partner violence. That is, violence perpetrated by a current or ex-partner, which can tragically lead to murder. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, never one to miss an opportunity to present himself as the nation's supposed good guy of politics, attended the Canberra rally and muscled his way into speaking.
We're here today to demand that governments of all levels must do better, including my own, including every state and territory government. We need to change the culture, we need to change attitudes. We need to change the legal system.
Now, you might be wondering how the issue of intimate partner violence has suddenly come to the fore of public dialogue again, and how it's connected to the Bondi stabbing. You may also be wondering why it motivated Albanese to not only attend a rally that was technically protesting his own government, but call a snap National Cabinet meeting that took place on Wednesday, and also to declare violence against women a national crisis. Well, it's like this. Soon after the Bondi mass stabbing, a campaign called Counting Dead Women, which is run by feminist group Destroy the Joint, started gaining a lot of attention on social media. Counting Dead Women does exactly that. Their researchers monitor media and police reporting of the number of women in Australia who have been killed in violent circumstances. Now, that number in 2024 is high enough to garner national attention, sitting in the high 20s just 4 months into the year. As of this week, according to Counting Dead Women, the number stands at 28. On top of that, the Australian Institute of Criminology, or AIC, just released the most recent data on homicide in Australia. Between the 1st of July 2022 to the 30th of June 2023, so that's the financial year, 34 women were killed by current or former male intimate partners, and that is also known as intimate partner homicide, or IPH. Now, this is a 28% increase from the 2021 to 22 financial year, in which 26 women were killed by current or former intimate partners. Hence the protests and the political opining by Anthony Albanese and, of course, the media furor. Now, what those facilitating the public outcry about this have in common is that they are characterising the deaths of the 28 women who died in violent circumstances so far in 2024 as the result of IPH. This has led to the public revival of what I like to call the blame all the men tactic. That is, pin the cause of intimate partner violence and homicide on the alleged disrespect men have for women across the whole of Australian society, and assert that by changing men's supposedly bad attitudes to women, intimate partner violence will just disappear. In the 2024 iteration of Blame All the Men, Attorney General Mark Dreyfus has been front and centre.
Fundamental to that shift is acknowledging that overwhelmingly violence against women in Australia is perpetrated by men. We have a crisis of male violence in Australia. It is a scourge in our society and it must end. To create lasting change, women cannot be expected to solve violence against women alone. It's time for men to step up. It's our responsibility to educate ourselves, our sons, our colleagues and our friends.
Anthony Albanese said similar.
Men have to change behaviour. We have to change culture. This isn't something that requires a one-off action. This is something that requires concerted action from all levels of government, from the media, from all levels of society to change culture.
And we saw plenty of it at the rallies over the weekend.
I don't want this for my daughter, and I don't think anybody should want this for their daughters.
I've got a son and a daughter, and it's more important for me to teach him how to treat women. determined despite anger, fear and grief.
We don't even get to walk out of our house and feel safe at the moment.
Now, the blame all the men tactic has been around for a long time, right back to at least the early 2000s. But is it fair to blame all of Australia's men for domestic violence? Is it truthful to assert that if men collectively would just change their attitudes, then domestic and intimate partner violence would just end? Well, no. Because while certainly intimate partner violence can and does occur anywhere, no matter your culture, income or living situation, there are certain predictors and factors that increase the likelihood of it occurring. We know this from a 2019 study, again from the AEST. Now, this was a landmark study that examined 39 quantitative studies of domestic violence over the preceding decade or so. It found that not only was there a hugely disproportionate concentration of domestic violence in impoverished areas, but that only 2% of men were responsible for a full 50% of domestic violence nationwide. In addition, the study revealed that a lot of domestic violence is reciprocal, meaning that, yes, there are female perpetrators and male victims. Alcohol abuse was, of course, found to be another driving factor. And additionally, there was a hugely disproportionate amount of domestic violence in remote Indigenous communities. This is a very, very sad statistic that has held true for years and years and years. And we can see that disproportionate nature of violence against Indigenous women in the AEST's 2022 to 23 homicide report. That is, of the 34 female victims of intimate partner homicide in that year, 5 of them were Indigenous women, and all of them were killed by Indigenous men. So in other words, almost 15% of female victims of IPH were Indigenous, which, when you consider Indigenous people make up just 3.8% of Australia's population, is just tragic and indicates a much larger problem. Nevertheless, although we can point to factors like poverty, alcohol abuse, recidivist offenders, and remote Indigenous communities stuck in a terrible cycle of all of the above that are strong indicators for where intimate partner violence is most likely to occur, we still get this messaging from society, politicians, and the media that intimate partner violence is largely a white middle-class problem, if the government ads are anything to go by. Like this ad from 2016.
Stop! You said stop!
He needs to stop doing that.
I said stop it!
Probably likes her.
That's it. Oh! Man up! You're playing like a girl! Come on!
He does this all the time. He just misses me.
Stop!
That doesn't matter. There's no excuse.
Yeah, we need to chat with him.
Hey, come here, please.
We all have the power to end violence. If you see disrespect, unmute yourself.
Now, this ad reveals another prong of the blame all the men tactic, which is to target school-age boys with government programs like the Respectful Relationships program, which is designed to teach boys to respect women. Now, the problem is these programs can end up simply painting all boys as potential predators and all girls as potential victims, which is certainly not the way to encourage mutual respect between men and women. A good example of this was an incident at the co-ed Brower College in Victoria in 2021, in which boys as young as 12 were made to stand up at a school assembly and apologise to their female peers for all of the rape committed by all men ever. Not the right approach for fostering any kind of respect, I would have thought. So where does all of that leave us for the 2024 edition of Blame All the Men? Given the recent higher numbers from the AIC and Counting Dead Women, is it true that we are in a crisis of male violence against women? Now, you will have heard the phrase, one woman has been killed every 4 days in 2024 by an intimate partner, and also assertions that the women who have died were killed by current or former partners, bandying around television and print media over the last week or so. This is based on the 28 women that, according to Counting Dead Women, are alleged to have been killed by violence since the start of the year. Channel 7 and Channel 9 both offered iterations.
The Prime Minister has declared domestic violence a national crisis. He's now ordered an emergency meeting of National Cabinet to address the sickening rise in domestic murders across the country. Today, another man was charged with killing a woman, the 27th this year.
We're only 4 months into the year and already 25 Australian women have allegedly been killed by a partner or former partner.
An epidemic of untold tragedy, a tally of women who've died at the hands of current or former male partners.
And Anthony Albanese explicitly said one woman had been killed every 4 days by an intimate partner.
The fact that a woman dies every 4 days on average at the hand of a partner is just a national crisis.
He said it again at the press conference after the emergency National Cabinet meeting on Wednesday.
Once every 4 days, a woman losing their life at the hand of a domestic or former domestic partner. This is indeed a national crisis, which is why we convened this meeting.
So, is it correct to say that, based on the numbers presented by Counting Dead Women, that in 2024, one woman every 4 days in Australia so far has been killed by a current or former intimate partner? No. No, that is not correct at all. See, on the Facebook page of Counting Dead Women, there is a post containing very handy resources about the 28 deaths of women they have tallied. The post includes an explainer of the victim, the perpetrator, and the situation in which the death took place, as well as 1 or 2 links to articles about each incident. So, I did what apparently no commentator or journalist in the Australian mainstream media has done, and I actually read the descriptor of those deaths. And it turns out not all of these women were killed by a current or former male intimate partner. In fact, not all of them were killed by men. When you subtract from the 28, which includes the deaths of the women who were killed in the Bondi mass stabbing, those that were committed by strangers or other male relatives or in home invasions, and those coupled by female perpetrators, you're left with about 8 women who died as a result of intimate partner homicide in 2024, not 28. As such, it is a blatant lie for Anthony Albanese and the media to assert that one woman every 4 days in 2024 has been killed by a current or former intimate partner, or that all 28 women were killed by intimate partner homicide. The fact is, it's more like one woman has died from IPH every 15 days so far in 2024. That is still too high. The number should be 0, but not 1 every 4 days. And considering the AIC's homicide report for the 2022 to 23 financial year revealed one woman was murdered by an intimate partner about every 11 days, well, 2024 looks to be a slowing of the numbers, at least so far. Now, to be clear, that makes the violent deaths of the other 20 women no less horrifying or tragic, not in the least. But it is wrong to lie and say they were all intimate partner homicides in an effort to gain easy political points and pander to the women's vote, which is exactly what Anthony Albanese is doing. It is wicked to tell Australian women that there are suddenly considerably more misogynistic men out there who would brutally assault and murder the women they are supposed to care for. And it is cruel to guilt-trip men for things that simply aren't their fault. And as for the 2022 to 23 AIC data, how does that 28% increase in intimate partner homicides stack up? Well, as it turns out, while there has been an increase since the preceding year, it's part of a larger trend dating back to 1989, which sees intimate partner homicides trending steadily downwards, not upwards. And given the very spiky nature of that top line, the spike we can see between 2022 and 23 is not at all out of sync with the trend in the preceding 3 decades. Now, given this decrease in intimate partner homicide, you may be tempted to think that the blame all the men tactic has been working. Well, not if you look at it in the context of the fact that acquaintance homicide, so that's the pale green line there, has also been trending down at about the same rate as domestic homicide generally since 1989. Acquaintance homicide, that is, the victim is killed by someone they know who is not a relative, is generally characterised by men killing other men. Since all of the public messaging has been to stop men killing women, with no mention of the fact that men, who make up the majority of homicide perpetrators and victims, by the way, are mostly killing other men, you would expect the rate of acquaintance homicide to remain about the same. As it turns out, the only type of homicide that has remained roughly the same since 1989 is stranger homicide, which would make sense since, sadly, the factors that likely contribute to that, which are things like robbery, drug abuse, and mental health issues, are a constant in society. As such, it appears that for whatever reason, when it comes to people they know, Australians are becoming less murderous. I don't know why that is. Maybe it is better policing. Maybe people are drinking less. Maybe more people are employed. Maybe more people are occupying their time on the internet alone rather than going out in groups where they're bored and starting trouble. Who knows? Either way, I think we can all agree that the overall declining rate of domestic and acquaintance homicide is a good thing. But it doesn't absolve Anthony Albanese and his government of the fact that, desperate to attract some good press after a series of bad polls, are taking advantage of the horrible suffering of 28 women who died in horrifically violent circumstances and the grief of their families and friends. It is despicable behaviour, even for politicians. All homicide, no matter who it is committed by or who the victim is a scourge on society. The very least our government can do in an effort to stop it is be honest about it.